Abusita, Ethos Chief Purpose Officer, followed by a presentation from our own Brian Symbolic, General Counsel of PIR, on our plans for the PIR Stewardship Council. Then we'll open up with a Q&A session. John Nevitt from PIR and Eric Brooks from Ethos are also joining us today, and we'll be happy to take questions. Before I pass the mic to Nora, just want to say thanks to everyone who submitted questions over the past week. Participants can also submit anonymous questions during the presentation through a live Q&A function that you will either find at the bottom of your screen or the top, which will be seen by panelists and the moderator. We will address questions related to today's topic in order of submission, and we'll get to as many of them as possible during our scheduled time slot today. In addition, it's important to note that a full transcript and a recording will be made available on keypointsabout.org. With that, I'll turn it over to Nora.
Thank you, Judy, and good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nora Abusita Uri. I have the honor of serving as Chief Purpose Officer at Ethos Capital. I'm very excited to leverage my expertise in corporate social responsibility in my current role. And I am dedicated to proving our integrity through our ongoing actions and openness to engaging. I had the privilege of being part of this community, your community, and the biggest lesson I learned was that in order to get things done, we have to be very open and we have to consult with everyone. So everything we're doing, we're trying to do with full openness and consultation. We have been listening intently to your questions and suggestions, and we're very happy to engage with you today. A lot of the content that we're discussing today has been a result of our engagement and our listening. And we did look at several models of stewardship councils, keeping in mind all your input and questions. And I believe that today we've made a lot of progress on a framework that we believe will help address a lot of your questions and concerns. I'm very happy to share some important updates and a bit more about our plans for the PIR Council. And before I introduce Brian, I wanted to share the 4 major aspects that we'll be unveiling today. Number 1, we are establishing a PIR Stewardship Council with the authority on matters that concern the .org community. Number 2, we are forming a public benefit LLC. Number 3, we're embedding our commitment for domain registration pricing in Public Benefit LLC Statement of Formation. And finally, 4, we are adopting a principle of transparency. I want to reiterate that we are fully committed to strengthening and empowering PIR, and in turn serving the entire .org community to ensure PIR can always fulfill its critical mission and the important purpose it serves. We also fully value and support the Internet Society's critical mission and the invaluable role it plays in supporting an open and secure and trustworthy Internet. Having said that, Brian, I give you the mic.
Thanks very much, Nora. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Symbolic. I'm General Counsel here at PIR. And while we're excited to talk about the things that are coming down the pike for us, I think it's important for us to talk about what PIR is and who we are today. So PIR is really, we're founded on 2 pillars. First and foremost is that we're an exemplary registry operator, and we'll touch on that in a bit more in a moment. Second is that we are the supporting organization for the Internet Society. So we, more than 50 cents of every dollar that comes into PIR goes directly to fund the tremendous mission of the Internet Society. So at a snapshot level, that's where we are today. On the exemplary registry front, so that is something that's really ingrained in our mission and what we do every day here at PIR. And that's reflected in any number of ways. So if you were to check third-party scoring agencies, things like Spamhaus, to check the health scores of PIR or of .org, we are consistently the cleanest of all of the large GTLDs, and it's typically not very close. And we try to really cultivate that, and we do so in a number of ways. One of the ways that we do that is through our quality performance index. So registries can slash prices dramatically and see huge spikes in volume, but co-measured to that, they see huge spikes in domain name abusage. And we don't think that that's healthy, particularly not for .org and the trust that we all try to be responsible stewards of. So what we do with Quality Performance Index is that we look at a registrar's, a snapshot of the registrar's performance in a few key areas. First and foremost is in anti-abuse. So if a registrar has a high proportion of abuse relative to its creates, then it can't participate in incentive programs with PIR. And if it has good QPIs in anti-abuse fronts, then we would look at other things, other benchmarks of healthy domains, of healthy domain usage, such as SSL certificates, DNSSEC, renewal rates, and ultimately, if a registrar has a high QPI, then they can get more incentives. The thought here is to really try and cultivate what we want .org to be, and that is to be seen as the trusted space that we are proud to serve as stewards of. Also, on the anti-abuse front, we want to be transparent about what we're doing here. So a few months ago, you might have seen John Nevitt, our CEO, posted our anti-abuse principles. And so that looks at how PIR approaches abuse. And we, first and foremost, we try to be responsible stewards of .org, and we are not website content censors. That's not what we're here to do. And so we wanted to put out there the very thoughtful approach that we take when we consider domain name system abuse. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. Part of that too is that we, on a quarterly basis, will publish our transparency reporting around anti-abuse numbers, anti-abuse suspensions, and our efforts there. Finally, I just wanted to briefly touch on PIR. We're proud to serve as a co-founding member of the Child Sexual Abuse Material Discussion Group among registries and registrars. And what that is, it's a place that we meet at every ICANN meeting, and we, registries and registrars, in conjunctions with leading agencies in this area, such as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the Internet Watch Foundation, and the InHope Network, talk about what we can do at the registry and registrar level in order to try and to remove child sexual abuse materials from our registrations. So that's kind of a look at where we currently stand, that we serve as an exemplary registry and serve as almost an endowment to the Internet Society. After the transaction, the Internet Society will have an actual endowment. It will have a more diversified portfolio that it can rely on for years to come in order to fund the tremendous work that it does. And that's the obvious benefit to the Internet Society throughout this transaction. But there's also the real benefit to PIR, to .org and the .org community, that where we can become a platform for the .org community. We want to know what we can do to better aid the .org community and the mission-driven organizations, and we're here for you. We are here to help empower .org registrants around the world. So we want to make clear, though, that we are going to continue to operate as an exemplary registry. It's the same team moving forward with the same mission, the same commitment. We're a team of 34 people. We're a small team, and we're to a person here. We're all tremendously proud of .org. When we're driving in the car and you hear an advertisement for a children's hospital or something that really is doing good, using the internet, using the DNS for good, anecdotally 9 times out of 10, you're going to hear .org at the end of that. And we are all tremendously proud of that here. It's why we are here. And that's not going to change. It's our commitment to .org, and that is not changing as a result of this. As a matter of fact, there's going to be, which I'll talk about in a minute, we're putting in place safeguards to ensure that that doesn't change, that .org remains the exemplary registry that it is today. The upshot here is, though, that we're in a better position to focus on innovation throughout the .org community, which we can speak to now. So we are really anxious to hear from the .org community. And the .org community isn't just .org registrants. It's those that rely on .org registrations to help do good around the world. So we are going to, in the coming months, we are going to be conducting a .org community survey and a .org community webinar to hear from the .org community. We're dying to hear, what can we do for you? How can we leverage .org in such a way that we are better enabling you to conduct your missions? If there's if someone's looking for a health organization in Southeast Asia to donate funds, how can we help put that donor in touch with that .org registrant? And that's something we want to be here to further empower the .org community after this transaction, and we're really excited about it. So I briefly touched on the safeguards that we're going to be putting in place to ensure that we continue as an exemplary registry. And the Stewardship Council is one of those safeguards. Previously, PIR, we had a tremendous advisory council. They're dedicated people from around the world that provided informal advice to PIR staff that we often incorporated into in what we do, into our mission, and we appreciated that advice tremendously. At the end of the day, though, it was a body that advised PIR staff, and it was not a public-facing body that had any sort of reports coming out of it as to the activities of the council. It fed directly into PIR. What the Stewardship Council does is take that kind of notion and elevates it significantly. So it will be a transparent and an independent body comprised of members from the .org community. So, you know, it's meant to serve as a cross-section of the .org community, from nonprofits, CSR, those that seek to do good around the world through .org. That's the idea of the Stewardship Council and who they will be. What they'll do is they're focused on balancing the interests of all .org stakeholders. So those .org registrants, donors, shareholders, PIR employees, the Stewardship Council is really meant to serve as a bridge across all of those interests and really strike the balance in its advice that it provides to PIR. We anticipate that the council should be up and running within 90 days of closing. So the Stewardship Council has three main roles, which I'll expand on each of these briefly. So it will provide oversight, direct oversight to safeguard the interests of the .org community. It's going to provide advice and strategic recommendations to the PIR board and issue periodic reports. So PIR, as I mentioned previously, we already do transparency reporting on our anti-abuse efforts. We also issue annual reports. The Stewardship Council will continue in that tradition, but also elevate both the ways that we report the information and what we're reporting. So what makes a Stewardship Council different from many advisory bodies is it has direct power over a number of some pretty core elements of PIR moving forward. So it provides direct oversight to safeguard the interests of the .org community in a number of ways. First and foremost, it will have the ultimate say on the core values of PIR, how we conduct our business here, how we conduct ourselves to the outside world, how we serve as stewards to .org. It ultimately has that authority over PIR. Secondly, it will ratify policies on safeguards against censorship and free expression in the .org domain space. So this is really key. We at PIR, we are not internet censors, and we don't ever want to be, and we won't. And that's the Stewardship Council will ultimately decide what these policies will ultimately have to ratify these policies on censorship and free expression, and we, as a company, will follow them. So the Stewardship Council will ultimately serve as a very prominent safeguard with transparent outputs that the community can digest and recognize that PIR will not serve as internet censors. So they are a virtual guardrail to ensure that that does not happen. Finally, the council will make and manage grants on behalf of the Community Enablement Fund. And this is one I'm personally very excited about. When we talk about ways that we can innovate and invest back into the .org communities in ways that we couldn't previously, this is a prime example. We will be in a position, and the Stewardship Council will oversee donations that come from the Community Enablement Fund moving forward. So those are the oversight functions. The Stewardship Council also has some critically important advisory functions. First and foremost, it's going to provide strategic advice on the balance and priorities in the .org community. As I mentioned, the various stakeholders in the .org community, the Stewardship Council will help strike that balance and provide strategic advice on what that balance should be. Also, as something Nora mentioned, so we are going to be forming a public benefit LLC, and contained within the formation documents, certificate of formation, will be a statement of public benefit, and the statement of public benefit will enshrine in the organizational documents the price commitments that Eric Brooks recently blogged about. So that will be built into the organizational structure here. And so if we ever sought to try and change that, it would require changing those documents. And so before that would happen, the Stewardship Council would have to provide advice in a transparent, open way on any proposed change like that. Finally, the Stewardship Council will issue recommendations on a product and service roadmap for the .org community. So these people are here for a reason. They're influencers and important parts, representing important parts of the .org community. So having that sort of advice from them will be extremely valuable in our products and services moving forward. So mechanically, talking about the Stewardship Council, it will meet at least twice a year, and will have staggered overlapping terms of up to 3 years. The nominating committee will select the members of the Stewardship Council once the Stewardship Council is up and running. The initial slate of stewards would be selected by the PIR board. And then one of the first things that the Stewardship Council will do is to create a nomination or selection committee. And that body, in conjunction with the PIR board, would ultimately be the entity that selects its own members. The Stewardship Council will work on the basis of consensus, and it would receive reimbursement for its expenses, an honorarium provided by PIR, but ultimately serving on the council is intended to be the honor unto itself. And with that, I will hand things back over to Nora.
Thank you so much, Brian. This is wonderful. Before we dive into questions, I have to reiterate that a lot of this progress and a lot of these developments came about thanks to our engagement with this community. We took the questions that were sent to us throughout the past few weeks very seriously. We definitely took our time in looking at the different options, and we really hope that what we propose today will comfort this community and will allow you to have more faith and more confidence in us as we move forward. I'd like to summarize the key points from today's presentation, and I want to highlight the important points that Brian mentioned. PIR has always been an exemplary registry, and that will never change. Also, PIR will shift from powering the Internet Society to empowering the whole .org community. Thirdly, the PIR Stewardship Council will have authority on defining the core values and establishing a policy against censorship of free expression, distributing the Community Enablement Fund, and the things that Brian pointed to. So this is an important body that will be part of the PIR ecosystem. Number 4, PIR will be anchored in Public Benefit LLC. Number 5, I have to underline and reiterate our firm commitment on domain registration pricing. And this was codified in the Statement of Public Benefit. And number 6, I think you all see that we take transparency very seriously, and it's a core principle. So as we continue to chart our path forward together with PIR, I want to again emphasize that we're listening and we're eager to learn by continuing to engage with different members of the .org community. I really hope you share our excitement for what's been accomplished already and what's about to come. Thank you all so much for participating in today's webinar, and I'll move it over to Judy for the question and answer portion.
Great, thank you, Nora and Brian. Now it's time for the Q&A portion of the webinar. We received a lot of questions before and during this presentation as well. I did just confirm that there were some of the Q&A questions, I believe, are interactive, and we have some of our panelists responding. I'm not going to check that right now, and I'm going to focus on the questions that we received in order prior to the presentation. I just want to remind everyone that we're going to address as many questions as we can and that are related to today's presentation, and look forward to reviewing the rest after this presentation. So I'm going to start with the first question. So if everyone can get on video, so that would be great. To start with the first question, what authority will the Stewardship Council have, and what term will its members serve? How are those individuals chosen and presumably removed?
I can take that one, Judy. So the Stewardship Council will be selected initially by the PIR board. And then once the Stewardship Council is up and running, it will be selected by the nominating committee or selection committee of itself. It'll have 1 to 3 year terms and will 1 to 3 year terms and is intended to be a true independent body. So it's intended not to be subject to interference from PIR. It is meant to be a true independent advisory body. So yeah, that's it. If there's any further question, I'm happy to answer that.
That's great. Thank you so much. Question 2, what role will nonprofits have in the Stewardship Council? Are you willing to accept nominations or recommendations from the nonprofit community to ensure our interests are represented?
I can take that. So as Brian mentioned, the initial council will be selected by the PIR board, and then the board will then, and that initial board, or so the PIR board will select the members of the Stewardship Council initially. And those members of the Stewardship Council will definitely represent leaders from mission-driven, charitable, not-for-profit organizations across a very wide spectrum. So it will include social entrepreneurs, community development leaders, economic empowerment, social advocacy members, and human rights and general philanthropy. So pretty much everybody that's represented in the .org community. And again, as Brian explained, a nominating committee will then be established, and then we expect that the nominating committee will welcome and solicit input from the .org community on these nominations. But I mean, the short answer is not-for-profit and community of .org representatives or community members from .org will be represented in this group.
Thank you, Nora. The next question is, who will the council members be accountable to? And how are you going to ensure complete independence from Ethos and its investors? Just trying to understand who the actual decision makers will be.
I can take that one, Judy. This is Brian at PIR. So again, the Stewardship Council is meant to be an independent body that, again, yes, of course, it will be initially established by PIR, but once it's up and running and operating under its charter, it will be self-sufficient, essentially, that it will provide advice to us, it will provide oversight to us in a number of key areas, but it is not subject to, a steward isn't subject to removal on a whim because he or she provides inconvenient advice. That would render the body meaningless. The idea here is that in order to be an effective safeguard, the Stewardship Council needs to be insulated from the sort of interference that I think the question asks about. And I think that we're taking the steps necessary to ensure that that's the exact arrangement. That once the Stewardship Council is established and operating under its own charter, it'll be the terms of those charters that ultimately decide, or rather it will be the Stewardship Council itself that ultimately decides the removal of one of its members, not interference from PIR.
Thanks, Brian. The next question that came in was, when is the planned incorporation of PIR as a public benefit LLC going to take place? What does that even mean? What is a, quote, statement of public benefit, close quotes? When will it be made public? Can you commit to doing those things before the transaction closes?
Judy, this is Eric. Why don't I take a stab at that one? So first of all, thanks everybody for taking the time this morning. This is incredibly helpful for us. These questions give us your perspective and gives us a chance to sort of tell you what we're thinking. I'd also say this is, as you've seen, a work in process for us. This is something that we're really spending a lot of time trying to listen, trying to field questions, and then iteratively coming back to you with the first set of responses, the second set of responses. It will continue to be iterative as we go through the process on a go-forward basis. So our plan for the Public Benefit LLC, we will absolutely have that executed prior to closing. That will be done. You have our commitment that will be done prior to closing. A Public Benefit LLC is a form of corporate structure that enables you to enshrine in the charter documents of the corporation its mission and purpose. Those are things that will be made available to folks as we finalize them and get them sort of presented. But I think you can look forward to seeing those, and hopefully in the coming weeks, giving us your feedback as to what those should look like.
Yeah, and this is Brian. If I could just chime in on that as well. The questions regarding the certificate of formation is ultimately the document that would be filed for the Public Benefit LLC. And as part of that, in order to be a public benefit LLC, we have to have a statement of public benefit. And so what that represents is it is the commitment that you are legally making in your organizational documents to whatever commitment you put there. And so in order to the LLC would not be in a position to take an action that violates those commitments, because that would be violating the very organizational documents by which it exists. So it's important to know that it's no small feat. It would be a fundamental existential commitment to exactly what is being put there. So it is those public interest commitments, public benefit commitments are really, it's one of the other primary safeguards that we're talking about here today, is that will be built in to the DNA of what we do here, and it will serve as an actual check to ensure that what we're talking, that we mean what we say here. It's not just empty words.
Great. Sorry about that. I needed to get off of mute. So the next question is, how do Ethos and PIR intend to consult and collaborate with the .org community members in drafting of the Stewardship Council charter? What transparency and accountability would be provided to the community throughout the process?
Yeah, thanks. This is Brian. So we're in the process of drafting that, but we're open. We certainly want to consult and will consult with the .org community with regards to this. For the Stewardship Council to serve as a cross-section or representation of the .org community, to really serve in the intended role that we hope it does, we need it to be properly reflective of the .org community. So yes, we will be consulting with regards to the charter. This is, again, the Stewardship Council is meant to both be an advocate and a safeguard for the .org community. So yes, we will be consulting on the charter of the Stewardship Council.
Thanks, Brian. The next question is, when will you make public the charter for the Stewardship Council? Will you commit to completing it before you close the deal? And will the community have an opportunity to comment on it before it's final?
Yeah, Judy, thank you. I'll take this question. Well, I think we shared a lot of the key tenets today. Brian went through them, and we're going to be working in consultation with a lot of the community members as we formulate the charter. We will solicit the community's feedback, and we will make the draft charter available for comments. I believe Brian mentioned earlier that the council itself will be operational 90 days following the closing of the transaction. So we're also aware that all of this will take place after the closing of the transaction. But before the closing, we will consult at length with community members and gather their feedback. This is not something that we're going to be working on behind closed doors and producing. We don't work that way.
Great, thank you, Nora. The next question is, what power would be given to the Stewardship Council to ensure it can effectively hold Ethos accountable and defend the interest of the .org community?
Yeah, thanks, Judy. I can take that one. So unlike most advisory bodies, which serve important roles, the Stewardship Council has direct power over key pieces of what we will be doing here at .org, at PIR. So again, it will have final say with regards to how we operate under our core values. It will have final say with regards to any policy regarding censorship in .org or our other TLDs for that matter, which again, we are not going to go down that road, and the Stewardship Council will ensure that we don't go down that road. And ultimately serve as a check in the event that the certificate of formation would ever be sought to be changed. The Stewardship Council would be required to be consulted in a transparent and open way in order for that process to ever happen. So the community would know about it. This would be, again, the Stewardship Council will be a resource, undoubtedly, for PIR and our strategy and our business and what we do here and how we conduct ourselves. But again, it's also a check and a safeguard to ensure that .org continues to operate in the exemplary way which I think it has.
Thanks, Brian. The next question is, would Ethos and PIR, under its management, refrain from implementing any substantive changes in PIR operations until a new Stewardship Council with robust oversight authorities is in place?
Judy, why don't I take that one? So one of the things that was most attractive to us about PIR is the company and is the management team and is the way that they've operated this business so far. I remember when we signed the transaction, I visited the company and I spent 3+ hours. We had every person from the company come and we had a town hall. And every single person that was an employee of the company and part of the team went around the table and said what they did and what they thought was important and why they loved PIR. And it was one of the most impressive presentations I've ever seen, because it really personalized for me that this is a mission-driven organization, but it's a mission-driven organization from the top, but it's a mission-driven organization at the most grassroots of it. I think as Brian sort of described earlier, his experience of riding in the car and, hearing an advertisement for a children's hospital and then having a .org extension at the end of it, that's powerful. And the people that work there are there because they care so much about that mission. They're caring that much. And the reputation of .org is the reason it's so successful. The reputation of .org is something that we take incredibly seriously because it represents the brand and the value and the reason it's so powerful in the world. When someone says .org, that means something, and that means something very specific. It means that organization is out there to do something they believe in. So, Ethos' perspective on how we will work with the management team is very hands-off. It is very much a servant leadership kind of mentality, where my conversations with the management team has been, tell me how I can help you work and achieve your mission better. What resources can I bring to the table? What skills do we have that you maybe don't have in-house? What relationships can we bring to bear that will help you achieve your goals? And how can we sort of sit together and brainstorm on how to serve the customers of PIR in a more rigorous and thoughtful and value-added kind of way? So when I think about what our contribution and influence will be to the management of PIR, whether that has to do with new products or services, whether that has to do with investment and business planning, it very much is going to be taking the lead from John and Lori and Brian and Judy and all of the other folks that have been there and have day-to-day experience with the business. We will have absolutely no influence or impact on anything that has to do with censorship or how they're operating the business on a day-to-day basis. It is, I think it's mission critical for people to understand that we are going to be a very hands-off partner for them, because if for any reason they believe that the mission or the purpose of this is being directed in a way that is not in the best interest of the community, or is not being driven directly by the management team, I think that really hurts the brand of the business, and that puts the value of the business over the long term in jeopardy. So I am very excited about supporting the management team. I'm very much focused on being hands-off. I think as Brian and Nora have described, the purpose of the stewardship board really is to take on that function of interacting with the management team on those issues that are sensitive and on those issues where people need to be assured that guidance and leadership is coming from the .org community itself and not from Ethos directly. So I think it's in our best interest. It's in PIR's best interest, and it's in the community's best interest for that responsibility to be securely vested in the stewards, and for everybody to understand that's really where it's coming from. I hope that was clear.
Thank you, Eric. So the next question is, what controls are in place to avoid abuse of power and restrictions on speech? Who will be responsible for decisions on limiting access to the use of .org? How will those decisions be made, and what appeal or arbitration processes are available to challenge them?
I can take that one, Judy. Essentially, I've been trying to answer some of the questions on the Q&A, but let me focus on this. I was answering questions about the Stewardship Council, and you know, they're going to play a vital role in this process. So essentially, we take the First Amendment very seriously, freedom of expression very seriously. We are not censors, never have been, never will be. We have the authority to work with the Stewardship Council on our principles. We are very public and transparent with our principles of anti-abuse and takedowns. Our DNS abuse takedown process is very extensive, and you know, if you're looking at botnets or malware or phishing, farming, things like that, we take action. We've taken down over 30,000 names this year on those kinds of anti-abuse issues. Also, at the same time, you know, there are some issues that we will look at, like child sexual abuse material that Brian mentioned, or human trafficking, opioids that we work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the U.S. and the IWF, or the Internet Watch Foundation in the UK. To the extent there are child sexual abuse material issues that come up, we will work with hosting providers and our registrar partners, and hopefully that kind of material is taken down. In 2019 so far, and you know, we're in December, we've taken down 10 names so far on those kinds of issues, and you know, those are the principles that we've published in Circle ID and on our website. And those are the issues we'll be working on with our new Stewardship Council. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Another question is, it was directly to John, a question for John about what PIR Ethos can do to ensure they don't go down the road of censorship.
Yeah, obviously I just covered that, but the other thing is we have an internal appellate process right now. If there's anyone has a name that's taken down and they think inappropriately, we'll have an internal process. You know, for example, there might be a domain name hijacking where someone else gets control of a name and does, you know, puts malware up there or something like that. And then, so we have a process for that to make sure that, you know, registrants are safe and secure. And then we're also developing an external appellate process. And we'll be working with the Stewardship Council on that. So that's something we'd like to do relatively quickly. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is, how are you embedding transparency in the Stewardship Council's oversight and procedures? Will the community have an opportunity to submit topics or suggestions to the Stewardship Council before the meetings? Can you commit to making meeting minutes public?
I can take that one, Judy. So we do anticipate that the outputs from the Stewardship Council will be publicly available, that they'll be transparent. And that would be codified in the charter that we, again, the notion, you know, sorry, my earphones are falling out. I've mentioned them as a safeguard, but the Stewardship Council isn't just a resource for us. The Stewardship Council, to be a representative cross-section of the .org community, there does need to be a flow of information. And so that is something that we're very cognizant of. And we want to be able to rely on the Stewardship Council as a way to tap into the voice of the .org community. So yes, we do anticipate getting feedback from the .org community through the Stewardship Council. And yes, the minutes would be public, and we want this to be a transparent body, an independent and transparent body. You know, I think it's going to be a tremendous resource and a tremendous safeguard for both PIR and for the .org community moving forward.
Thanks, Brian. The next question we had come in was, do you have any bylaws in place to ensure that the Stewardship Council meets geographic, sectoral, and gender diversity requirements? If not, why not?
Sorry, I can take that. Well, I mean, first of all, there's no charter right now, so it is important that we get this feedback, and this is, of course, a suggestion that has been at the core of our thinking. And so absolutely the council has to comprise of a diverse group of people who are representative of all stakeholders of the .org community. And I mean, I'm personally very committed to making sure this group is very diverse. And I know that everybody at PIR and Ethos is committed to that too. So once the charter is being developed, and the selection kind of starts, we will keep the diversity issue at the forefront of our thinking.
Thanks, Nora. The next one. How big is the Community Enablement Fund, and how will it be administered?
Great, let me take that one, Judy. So we are going to establish the Community Enablement Fund shortly after closing and working with the management team to sort of look at the different sources of income. I can tell you it will be substantial. It will be in the millions, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it will be something that we intend to grow and build over time. I think, as Brian mentioned, it is something that the stewards will have direction over, and something that I believe will be incredibly impactful to the .org community most specifically. The dollars that had cycled up to ISOC as a result of all of PIR's good work went to support the internet community broadly. You know, creating a free and open internet around the world is an incredibly important mission. But PIR has a more focused constituency and has a much more focused set of customers and organizations that they are responsible to and they ultimately serve. And that's the .org community, and that's the mission-based community. So for us, we're really excited because the community fund is going to give us an opportunity to be incredibly focused on that community specifically, and finding ways to support and help and grow and amplify the work that they're doing around the world. So again, it's going to be a very material size in the millions of dollars. It's going to be something that we anticipate grows over time significantly, and it's going to be very focused on our community, the .org community specifically. So I think we'll look forward to all of the good work that they're going to do, but I think most specifically, and I'm most excited to really do it in a very focused way that relates to our customers and the folks that we're touching every day.
Thank you so much. So the next question is, what role will PIR's current advisory council play? Please explain how the Stewardship Council will differ from PIR's existing advisory council.
I can take that one, Judy. So the existing advisory council, after the transaction, it would sunset, and we would replace the advisory council with the Stewardship Council. First, I want to thank our advisory council. They are a dedicated group of extraordinary individuals from around the world who dial in calls at X hours early in the morning from all around the world, and have been a tremendous resource for us to rely on in formulating our strategy around the world, our outreach. They have consistently gone above and beyond, and so we thank them for what the advisory council has done for PIR over the many years that they've served. So the structural differences between the advisory council and the stewardship council are a couple. First and foremost, that the one, where does the stewardship council report into versus the advisory council? So the advisory council reported in, I should say, or provided outputs to PIR staff. And so we would take that information, digest it, share information with the board. The stewardship council has an elevated seat. The stewardship council will report to or will liaise directly with the PIR board. Secondly, the advisory council would provide us with advice and engage in discussions with us, but wouldn't have any sort of transparent public output. So the stewardship council, as we mentioned previously, we anticipate this to be a transparent body. And so they will conduct their meetings and they will publish minutes. When they provide formal advice, they will do so transparently. So the stewardship council, while the advisory council was purely a resource for PIR, the stewardship council will serve as both a check and a resource to PIR, but also a resource to the community, where it will be able to have a direct plug-in to the sort of oversight and strategic questions that are going on. Lastly, the biggest difference is the Stewardship Council has direct oversight over key facets of what we do and who we are. You know, we spent a number of of man hours around PIR in a small company determining our core values. And now that is something that we're going to directly have the Stewardship Council be involved in and have to certify what those core values are, how we operate. Also, as we've mentioned several times now, they will have direct oversight over the questions around censorship. And our advisory council, we had been involved in that process in the past, but in just that capacity, an advisory role. So when we discussed the framework to address abuse, we previewed it, discussed, and took feedback from the, not the framework to address abuse, our anti-abuse principles, my apologies. Our anti-abuse principles, we previewed with the advisory council, got feedback, they provided excellent feedback, and recirculated based on those recommendations. The Stewardship Council will have the direct hand in determining whether or not we should ratify certain policies on censorship in .org, which again, we don't want to, and the Stewardship Council will help serve as a safeguard to ensure that that doesn't happen. So it's a bit more of a formal body with direct powers over certain aspects of PIR. That said, it is not here to meddle in the day-to-day operations of PIR, but at the strategic level on those key components, it has direct power and influence over the organization.
Thank you so much. We have a few minutes left, and I just wanted to address a couple of the questions in the Q&A. I'm going to read the question and the answer. John actually is the one, John Nevitt, our CEO, is actually the one that responded, but I just want to get to a few before we close. So the first one was, have you seen the letter from the GNSO non-commercial stakeholder group to the ICANN board? Are the proposals in the letter ones Ethos and PIR would be willing to work with the NCSG and ICANN on? And then the PDF, the letter is in there. So John's response was, absolutely, happy to work with the NCSG and ICANN on these issues. We already follow some of these requests, are involved in the policy development of others. The next question was, will Ethos commit to maintaining the current anti-abuse policy and not expand the definition of abuse? The response was, Mitch, I'm sorry, I should have left that anonymous. We don't foresee any changes and are committed to our current policy. The Stewardship Council will approve any changes to our anti-abuse policy and principles to the extent we ever want to change them. The next question, will companies be allowed on the .org Advisory Council? And the response was, the Stewardship Council will be comprised of individuals and not companies. The next question, will you allow individuals who work for companies? The answer was yes. We wouldn't exclude folks just based on where they work. The .org community is wide and vibrant, and the council should be as well. Corporate social responsibility registrants, for example, shouldn't be excluded from the council. So as we approach the end of our webinar, I just wanted to close the Q&A. While we didn't get to every single Q&A question because we were also answering these questions that we needed to, that we received prior. We look forward to continuing the discussion in the coming weeks. I just wanted to remind you guys that a full transcript and recording will be made available on keypointsabout.org, which is our microsite. Thank you to everyone that took the time to participate today. I wanted to be transparent and let you guys know that ISOC also did a live streaming as well at the same time. So you may see that on the list as well. We encourage you to continue the open dialogue and encourage you also for the continued feedback and the participation. We truly believe that when we operate .org together, we stay true to the values that we already have and we're committed to. Thanks a bunch. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Judy. Thanks for moderating. And thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.